Think Swedish air power begins and ends with the Gripen? You're looking at a ghost of the past. Right now, Saab is quietly engineering a revolution in autonomous drone swarms that renders traditional dogfighting obsolete. We are peeling back the curtain on the decentralized software rewriting the rules of European sovereignty. Imagine a battlefield where a single pilot commands a cloud of invisible, lethal intelligence. Sweden is no longer just building jets. They are perfecting the loyal wingman through advanced command and control systems. This is how a small nation secures its future, transforming tactical drone swarms into the ultimate force multiplier. What happens when the cockpit becomes a server room for autonomous war? We're analyzing Sweden's aggressive pivot toward collaborative platforms that redefine independent defense. By dismantling the tech behind Saab's newest drone swarms, we reveal how decentralized AI is becoming the new backbone of strategic power in 2026.
For years, the world has looked at Sweden's JAS 39 Gripen E as if it is the final peak of Swedish aerospace innovation. And honestly, it is easy to understand why. The Gripen E is fast, smart, networked, software-driven, packed with advanced electronic warfare, AESA radar, AI-assisted cockpit thinking, and real-time sensor fusion. Saab itself presents it not just as a fighter jet, but as a system built to survive in the most contested battlefields of the future. But this is where the real story begins. Because the Gripen may not be the end of Sweden's military aviation vision. It may only be the visible part of something much bigger. Behind the high-profile fighter jet marketing, Sweden is quietly moving toward a new air combat model where manned fighters, unmanned aircraft, AI agents, and autonomous systems work together as one connected force. In 2025, Saab received a major FMV order for future fighter concept studies, including manned and unmanned solutions, demonstrators, and a wider system of systems approach. And then came the signal that changed everything. Saab and Helsing successfully integrated the Centaur AI agent into a Gripen E, where the aircraft handed control to AI during complex beyond visual range combat scenarios. This was not science fiction. It was a real flight test backed by Sweden's Defense Procurement Authority and linked directly to Sweden's Future Fighter Systems program. So the myth is this. People still think the Gripen is Sweden's sword. But in the next era of warfare, the sword may no longer be the fighter jet itself. The Gripen could become the brain, the command node, guiding loyal wingman drones, feeding them battlefield data, assigning targets, controlling electronic warfare pressure, and turning the sky into a robotic hunting network. Now, to be balanced, Sweden has not revealed a fully operational drone swarm force ready for combat today. Much of this future is still in testing, concept studies, and controlled development. But that is exactly what makes it so important. The countries that dominate future air warfare may not be the ones with the loudest jets. They may be the ones that quietly build the smartest ecosystem before anyone else realizes the game has changed. And in my opinion, this is why Sweden's role is being underestimated. The world is watching the Gripen's wings, missiles, and radar, but the real revolution may be happening behind the cockpit, inside the software, inside the AI, and inside the unseen drone network that could one day fly beside it. Before we go deeper, take a second to like the video and subscribe. More than 98% of viewers watch without subscribing, and your support helps the channel keep bringing you these deep dives into military technology.
The next chapter of Sweden's air power is not just about building faster jets or more expensive missiles. It is about building an aircraft ecosystem that can think, adapt, and survive when the battlefield goes dark. This is where Saab's real shift becomes clear. The Gripen is important, but the future system around it may be even more important. A network where manned aircraft,
Unmanned drones, AI agents, sensors, and electronic warfare tools work together without needing every decision to return to one central command room. This is the real meaning of autonomy. Not a drone flying in a straight line, not a remote pilot controlling every turn from a screen, but a swarm of unmanned aircraft that can receive a mission, spread out, identify threats, adjust formation, share data, and continue operating even when communication links are weak, delayed, jammed, or completely cut. Saab's autonomous swarm technology has already been tested in major AUKUS-linked trials, where Saab-owned Blue Bear demonstrated AI-enabled swarms of uncrewed aircraft and a mission system that allowed a single operator to command a diverse group of autonomous drones. And this is where the strategy becomes serious. In January 2025, Sweden's defense minister said Sweden would test new drone swarm technology developed by Saab and the Swedish Armed Forces during the Arctic Strike exercise.
According to Reuters, the system was designed so drones of different sizes could form swarms and solve tasks autonomously, including reconnaissance, positioning, and identification. That means Sweden is not only talking about future drone warfare, it is building the architecture for it. The most important part is decentralized command and control. In old warfare, one headquarters gave orders, one pilot made the decision, and one aircraft carried out the strike. But in future warfare, that model may be too slow. A swarm cannot wait for human permission every second. It must make split-second tactical choices on its own. Which drone moves forward? Which drone acts as a sensor? Which one becomes a decoy? Which one tracks the target? And which one stays silent? Saab's Blue Bear technology points in that direction by using AI inside a wider autonomous system of systems, including the ability to integrate different AI tools and networked sensors across the battlefield. This is also why the Gripen E matters so much. In 2025, Saab and Helsing integrated the Centaur AI agent into a Gripen E, and during flight tests, the jet handed control to the AI in beyond visual range combat scenarios. Saab also tested the AI's robustness by changing distances, speeds, angles, and even disabling C2 data to see how it performed under degraded command conditions. That detail is critical because the future battlefield will not be clean. Russia, China, and other advanced forces will try to jam signals, blind radars, cut data links, and break the communication chain before the first missile is fired. So the real Swedish breakthrough is not only hardware, it is software trust. Can an AI agent continue the mission when the pilot cannot talk to the drone? Can a swarm keep moving when GPS is disrupted? Can unmanned aircraft reorganize themselves when one drone is destroyed? Can the system survive when the enemy turns the sky into electronic chaos? Helsing says Centaur processes Gripen's onboard sensor inputs to plan, maneuver, engage adversaries, and evade threats, while Reuters reported that Sweden's AI fighter trial was part of a wider move towards crewed and uncrewed next-generation combat systems. Sweden's drone swarm story is not only about technology, it is about control. Because in modern warfare, the country that owns the software owns the speed of decision. The country that controls the code controls the upgrade cycle. And the country that can modify its systems without waiting for foreign approval controls its own military future. This is why Sweden's approach is so important. Sweden is not cutting itself away from NATO, the United States, or European partners. That would be unrealistic. Sweden joined NATO in March 2024, and its own government says total defense must be able to operate both independently and jointly with allies. But the key word is independently. Sweden wants alliance cooperation without becoming strategically trapped inside someone else's software ecosystem. Its total defense policy is built around defending Sweden's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, not simply plugging into another country's command structure. This is where Saab becomes more than just a defense company. It becomes part of Sweden's national survival system. In October 2025, Saab received a major FMV order for future fighter concept studies, including manned and unmanned solutions, technology development, demonstrators, and a system of systems approach. The project also connects Saab with the Swedish Armed Forces, FMV, the Swedish Defense Research Agency, GKN Aerospace, and other industry partners.
That is not just procurement. That is Sweden building an internal defense brain trust, where the aircraft, drones, sensors, and software can be shaped by Swedish strategic needs, not imported as a locked package. And this matters because drone swarms are different from traditional weapons. A missile can be bought, stored, and fired, but an autonomous drone swarm must constantly evolve. It needs new threat libraries, new electronic warfare logic, new AI behavior, new mission data, and new rules for how drones communicate when the enemy jams the sky.
If that system depends on foreign permission every time it needs an update, then in a crisis, the country does not fully own the weapon, it only rents the right to use it. The Gripen already gives us a clue to Sweden's mindset. Saab says Gripen E separates mission system functionality from flight-critical software, allowing faster updates and capability growth without forcing full recertification every time new mission software changes. Saab also says Gripen users can adapt software applications after day 1 of a conflict to secure combat advantage for day 2 and beyond. That is the philosophy Sweden now appears to be carrying into autonomous systems. Build platforms that can evolve quickly, locally, and under national control. Now connect this to Sweden's total defense doctrine. Total defense is not only soldiers, tanks, and aircraft. Sweden defines it as a whole-of-society system that includes military defense and civil defense, built to prepare the country for war. The 2025-2030 defense plan adds more than 170 billion for military defense and 37.5 billion for civil defense, while also prioritizing digitalization, innovation, and research. That means autonomous platforms are not just battlefield tools. They fit into a bigger national model: local industry, local command structures, local innovation, and national resilience under pressure. This is why Sweden's drone swarm effort should not be seen as a small side project. Reuters reported that Sweden planned to test drone swarm technology developed by Saab and the Swedish Armed Forces, allowing drones of different sizes to form swarms and perform tasks such as reconnaissance, positioning, and identification autonomously. That one detail reveals the deeper strategy. Sweden wants systems that can operate fast, survive pressure, and continue the mission even when the command chain is under attack.
In the Baltic theater, the old image of air combat no longer fits the future. It is not just one Gripen chasing one enemy fighter in a classic dogfight. The real future is one Gripen acting like a flying command brain, connected to unmanned systems, sensors, decoys, and autonomous drones that expand its reach far beyond what a single aircraft could do alone. Saab describes the Gripen E as a networked fighter with advanced electronic warfare, ASA radar, AI-assisted decision support, and an avionics architecture built for rapid upgrades. That means the Gripen is not only a weapon platform, it is becoming a control point inside a much larger combat web. Now imagine that concept over the Baltic Sea. Russia's anti-access and area denial pressure around Kaliningrad has long been viewed as one of NATO's most serious regional challenges. Analysts at NATO's Joint Air Power Competence Center have warned that Russian air defense systems in Kaliningrad can create hostile airspace deep into NATO territory, while land-based anti-ship missiles can threaten movement across the Baltic Sea. In simple words, the Baltic is not an open playground. It is a narrow, crowded, dangerous battle space where radars, missiles, ships, aircraft, and electronic warfare all overlap. This is where autonomous swarms change the equation. Instead of sending one expensive aircraft directly into the most dangerous zone, Sweden's future model could use the Gripen as the high-value brain, while cheaper drones push forward as scouts, decoys, jammers, target spotters, and expendable sensors.
Saab's autonomous swarm technology has already been demonstrated in AUKUS-linked trials, where AI-enabled uncrewed aircraft systems were operated as interoperable swarms. Reuters also reported that Sweden planned to test Saab-developed drone swarm technology, able to let different-sized drones autonomously perform reconnaissance, positioning, and identification tasks. And this is the real force multiplier. A single Gripen does not need to carry every sensor, every weapon, and every risk by itself. It can sit as the decision-maker while the swarm spreads across the battlespace and forces the enemy to react from multiple directions. One drone may expose a radar, another may confuse the picture, another may send back targeting data, another may simply force the enemy to waste a missile. This is not about replacing the pilot. It is about giving the pilot a robotic extension of his own eyes, reach, and pressure. The economics are just as dangerous as the technology. Modern air defense missiles are expensive, limited, and difficult to replace quickly. But drones can be cheaper, faster to build, and easier to lose. This creates a brutal cost-to-kill problem. If an adversary fires a high-cost missile at every low-cost drone, it may win the moment, but lose the inventory war. NATO is already wrestling with this problem after seeing how cheap drones can force defenders to spend far more expensive interceptors. Saab has also studied lower-cost drone-killing options for Gripen, because using premium air-to-air missiles against inexpensive drones is not always economically sustainable. That is why the future fight in Northern Europe may not be decided by the most glamorous machine in the sky. It may be decided by mass, software, and endurance. The side that can launch more sensors, more decoys, more robotic platforms, and more autonomous effects may force the other side to burn through its best weapons too early. In this kind of warfare, victory is not only about destroying the enemy, it is about exhausting him, draining his missiles, confusing his radar picture, and forcing him to make expensive decisions against cheap threats.
Sweden's shift beyond the Gripen is not just a national defense story. It is becoming a blueprint for every middle-power nation that cannot afford to fight like a superpower but still refuses to be strategically irrelevant. Sweden does not have the size of the United States. It does not have endless aircraft carriers, massive overseas bases, or unlimited missile stockpiles. But what it does have is something extremely valuable in the new age of warfare: a strong domestic defense industry, fast software culture, dispersed military thinking, and a clear understanding that future air superiority will be built through networks, not just individual jets. This is why Sweden's future fighter work matters so much. Saab's latest FMV-backed studies are not only about replacing or upgrading an aircraft. They include manned and unmanned solutions, technology demonstrators, and a wider system of systems approach involving Saab, FMV, the Swedish Armed Forces, FOI, GKN Aerospace, and other Swedish partners. That means Sweden is not simply buying the future from outside, it is trying to design the future at home. And this gives smaller and medium-sized nations a powerful lesson. You do not always need the largest air force to create pressure. You need smart architecture. You need a fighter that can communicate, drones that can absorb risk, AI that can process chaos, and local software control that allows the system to evolve faster than the enemy can adapt. Saab says the Gripen E's avionics architecture allows software updates within hours, which shows the philosophy behind Sweden's approach: speed, adaptability, and constant evolution. By the 2030s, the Gripen may no longer be seen mainly as a fighter jet. It could become the coordinator of a larger multi-domain battle network, connecting air, sea, land, cyber, electronic warfare, and autonomous systems into one moving battlefield picture. This is not fantasy. Sweden has already moved in that direction by testing drone swarm technology developed by Saab and the Swedish Armed Forces, where different-sized drones could autonomously perform reconnaissance, positioning, and identification tasks. And Europe is watching this shift for a reason. The war in Ukraine has shown that drones are no longer side weapons. They are now central to modern combat, forcing NATO countries to catch up quickly, especially in harsh northern environments where systems must survive cold, jamming, and long distances. Reuters reported in 2025 that Northern European and North American defense sectors were rushing to develop drones that can operate in Arctic conditions. This is where Sweden's total defense model becomes important. Sweden is not treating future warfare as a single military upgrade. It is rebuilding national resilience. Its 2025-2030 defense resolution adds more than $170 billion for military defense and $37.5 billion for civil defense through 2030, while defense spending is expected to reach 2.6% of GDP by 2028. In simple words, Sweden is not preparing for one shiny platform. It is preparing an entire society, industry, and military structure for a long-term security crisis. So the real lesson for Europe is clear. Future defense will not belong only to countries that buy the most expensive aircraft. It will belong to countries that can connect aircraft, drones, sensors, software, and human command into one fast-moving system. In this model, the Gripen is not just the weapon, it becomes the brain. The drones become the reach. The AI becomes the speed. The local industry becomes the shield, and the national doctrine becomes the reason the whole system can survive under pressure. And that is the final realization. Sweden has not just built a better jet, it has re-engineered the meaning of air superiority. The old world measured power by speed, stealth, and missile range. The new world will measure it by autonomy, software, survivability, and swarm intelligence. And if Sweden succeeds, the Gripen will be remembered not only as a fighter aircraft, but as the first visible piece of a much larger revolution in European defense. If you found this deep dive valuable, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about the technology shaping modern warfare. Thanks for watching.